Hi guys, I am Inkugaki, and in this video today I'm going to show you how to animate eyes on Live2D. I'm going to guide you through the whole process, so without further ado, let's begin! Alright guys, to begin with our eye animation, we actually have to check our meshes, okay? In this case, we can see that our meshes are a little bit too big for our piece, and we need to have a precise mesh, since this part of the model is going to be heavily transformed. So I'm going to guide you on how to make a good mesh for a heavy transformation. Let's begin. We're going to go back to edit mesh manually, and we're going to erase all the points that our automatic mesh generation made. And we're going to make our new points, because we need to have the biggest amount of control we can. This first row of point is going to be just outside our object. This is because it's going to work as a barrier, and also is going to help us prevent undesired cuts in the shape of our object. Next, we have to do our second row. We're going to position ourselves in one of the existing points, and we're going to add this second row outside the first one, okay? Like this. The next part is to make a third row, but this one is actually going to be inside our object. Alright guys, to finish, we're going to go to this tool called Add Points, and we're going to add points inside our object, just like this. Alright guys, now that you saw how to make a much more refined mesh, I'm going to go and apply this same process to the pieces of the eye that I'm going to transform heavily. In this case, that will be the eyelash side, these two eyelashes. Also, I'm going to refine the mesh of this piece and also this other piece. I will see you in a minute. Now, I'm going to explain you something really important regarding the iris's mesh. We can see that the center of the iris is this white ball right here. But for the program, the center of the iris right now is where this red dot is. It's really important to fix this, because if we omit this issue when we export our character into a tracking software like vtuber Studio, the program is going to take the center of the mesh as the center of the iris. This will give us an inaccurate tracking for the eyes. So we're going to fix it by redoing the mesh. Alright guys, I'm back. Now we can see that the center of the mesh, it's really close to the center of our object. Also, I did not make this mesh really complex because the iris is not going to be transformed as much in this example. To finish the preparations, I'm going to refine the Scleras and also the eyeshadows mesh, but I left this at last because I want to show you something. When we get to this menu, it becomes really difficult to be precise when a part it's white and the background it's white as well. So you can go to this square right here that says change background color or opacity of the canvas, and you can actually press it. This wheel is going to appear and you can lower the brightness and also the opacity of the background. So if you're working with really bright parts, this helps a lot. Alright guys, now we finished all our preparations and we can start animating. So, I'm going to select the eyelash. We're going to go to this tool right here that is called Deform Path Edit. I'm going to click it and I'm going to put one point at the end of the eyelash and one at the beginning. You guys can see that now our mesh changed colors. This means that this mesh is now being affected by these 2 points that we made. But that's not all. I'm going to go to the middle of the line that was created and add a third one, and while maintaining the cursor on this one, I'm going to pull up and accommodate it to the shape of our eyelash. I like to work with 5, so I'm going to put one more here and one more here. These points are going to make it easier for us to transform organic shapes, as you guys can see. And this is how we're going to make our open and closing animation. So, I'm going to select the eyelash. I'm going to go to the parameter IL open. I'm going to add 2 keyforms. When the value is in 1.0, that means that the eye is going to be open. And of course, when it's in 0.0, it's going to be closed. So what I'm going to do now is to reshape the eyelash to resemble a closed eye. Alright guys, I finished for now the animation of the eyelash. What I'm going to do next is to apply the same keyforms to all the pieces that are going to be affected. So now let's get to the other pieces, eyelash number 1 and eyelash number 2. Alright, now I'm going to go to the eyelash side. For this one, I'm also going to use again the Deform Path Edit tool. There is no rule on when to use this tool, but if you want to have more control over an object that is going to be transformed like this and is curved, it's a good idea to use it. So, what we're going to do next is select all the pieces that are being affected by this parameter and add a new keyform on 0.6, and we're going to work from here to make a more appealing transition, okay? Next, I'm going to make a keyform on 0.8. Again, I'm going to select everything, go to 0.8 and add a new keyform. And I'm going to transform here properly so it can look better. To finish, I'm going to go back to our eye open parameter, select everything and go to the 0.2 position and create one last keyform. And again, what I'm going to do is to refine the closing animation. To finish our eye animation, we're going to hide the sclera now, because when we close our eye, the sclera is still visible. To do this is actually really easy. We're going to select the sclera and I'm going to go back to our edit mesh manually, and in the tool details tab I'm going to use the add points tool and I'm going to add more points just so I have a little bit more of control when transforming the sclera, okay? Once we're done, I'm going to go back again to the IL open parameter and create two keyforms. Now I'm going to go back to the 0.0 keyform and I'm going to transform the sclera like this. I'm going to squish it to a point where it's almost invisible, like that. Next, I am going to use the Deform Path Edit tool again, like this. Once that's done, we can test how the sclera moves now. It moves so much better, but we still have a little problem. You guys can see that our sclera, well, for example, somewhere over here, it disappears. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with the eyelash. We're going to match the keyforms and transform to make smoother transitions. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Alright guys, we are almost done. Look at this. Our sclera now works properly. To finish, I'm going to do some improvements in the whole eye. For example, I never animated the bottom, so you guys can see that it never moves. Nor I animated this line over here. So what I'm going to do next is just to animate those two and improve some transformations so the whole pieces can work together as a whole, okay? I'll see you in a bit. Alright guys, we're finished with the eye animation. Look. Now we are missing just one little thing, and it's our iris movement. It's really easy, but we need to take into account our deformer hierarchy system, because the iris is a thing that we tend to change or to add things to. For example, hearts or stars inside the eyes, those sort of things, right? So for this, we're going to animate the position with a new deformer. So I'm going to call this one Warp Deformer, Iris, L, because it's the left iris, and XY. Now, while selecting this deformer that we just made, we're going to go back to our parameter tab and we're going to look for eyeball X and eyeball Y. If you saw my video on how to animate the head X, Y, and Z parameters, this process is going to be the same. We're going to select the parameter, we're going to create 3 keyforms while selecting the deformer, not the part, and when we go to -1, this one is going to be left. When we go to 1, this one is going to be right. Now, we're going to go to eyeball Y and do the same. Create 3 keyforms, and when it goes negative, we look down. When it looks positive, we look up. And once we have these core animations, we're going to position ourselves on eyeball X and go to the button link parameters, and we're going to link X and Y so we can actually move like this. We're going to go to the arrow again, select everything that has been affected by these parameters. We're going to go to modeling, go to parameter, and synthesize corners again. Now, there was a new update with Live2D, and now the menu looks a little bit different, but it's the same. We check that we're synthesizing the correct parameters, eyeball X and Y, and the keys to override are going to be this one. If you for some reason didn't want to override one of them, you can uncheck them, but of course we're going to check them all and hit OK. Once we have synthesized our corners, we have our new iris animation. I would recommend you guys to check when the eye is kind of open and kind of closed to see how the eye looks, okay? If it looks up too much or too little, sort of thing. Or here's not going to be a big deal because it's almost closing, right? But it's good to check out so you don't position your iris too high up where it's not visible, okay? So in this case, it looks great. Alright guys, before we finish, I want to show you how to duplicate the eye, okay? So, before we duplicate it, I'm going to go back to the Parts tab and select all the parts of our eye, except the eyebrow, because the eyebrow is going to be its own thing later. I'm going to make a new folder in this button right here. It says new part, but it's basically a new folder. And we're going to call it IL. I'm gonna hit OK. And now we have our parts in a folder. This is just to be a little bit more organized, okay? Now, while everything is selected, I'm going to go and create a new warp deformer. This one is gonna be called Warp Deformer IL. I'm gonna hit create, but this problem is going to appear. It says, please create an object with the same parent deformer selected. Do not worry, this is going to make it impossible for us to make a deformer like this. But there is an easy fix or an easy solution. What I'm going to do is deselect everything and click the deformer button. Now we're gonna have a window again, we're gonna call it the same, and we're going to create. But now, since this window does not have anything to contain, it's the size of our canvas, as you guys can see. I'm gonna go and resize this deformer, and I'm going to make it the size of the eye, like this. For the next part, we're going to go back to our deformer tab. Let me make it bigger. There we go. And let me move a little bit. So, I'm going to put inside this deformer all the things that we need there, being the iris with its respective deformer. I'm just gonna grab it and put it there. And all our pieces of the eye, the eyelash, 1, 2, blah 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 blah, bloop, Sclera, everything except the eyebrow. And just drag it there. Once I've dragged it here, we can check that this deformer is affecting all these parts as intended. Before we move on, let me go back here, and because of the order, I'm going to put this deformer inside our respective folder, right, the IL. Now I'm going to select IL, select all the pieces that are inside, right, with its respective deformers and whatnot, and I'm going to duplicate the folder. copy and we say yes and just paste. And now we have another folder that contains the pieces and everything. I'm gonna move this folder away, and for the sake of organization, I'm going to rename it. Please, guys, remember, if you copy something or duplicate something, rename all the parts, just so you know what are you working with. So, okay, once that's done, I'm going to lock the IL because I don't need it right now, and I'm going to select all the pieces of the IR. Right click and reflect. We're going to go back to the same menu that we saw before when we were reflecting the ears of our character, and we're going to say reflect horizontally. But listen, we can reflect parameters here because our objects have parameters. I do not recommend reflecting the parameters right away because it can turn into a mess, okay? So I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm gonna hit OK, and now we have another eye. If we did this correctly, the eye should be in the intended position. We can check it out with our reference to see if it's where it needs to be, and apparently it is, so that's great. Now I'm going to show you how both eyes work. I'm going to open and close. Our animation looks really cute, but this is a problem that I've seen a lot of people have, and it's actually hilarious. The first time this happened to me, I couldn't stop laughing. Look at this. If we move the eyeballs, they are going to move like in this way, okay? It's pretty funny. It's really easy to fix, but it's I don't know, I find it funny. Okay, we're going to go back to fix this. First we need to fix the movement, because what it's going on, or what it's happening, is that since we reflected all the objects but we did not reflect parameters, well, the X parameter on the eyeball, it's negative, right? So we're going to go to the iris right deformer, because the deformer is the one that is linked to this parameter, and we're going to right click and reflect. This time we are not going to reflect horizontally, right? Because this part is for reflecting position. We're not going to reflect horizontally, so we're going to take the mark away, and in the parameters we're going to reflect the X parameter. Once we hit OK, our eyeballs work as intended. But in terms of illustration and, well, lighting and whatnot, the iris should be in the same orientation, okay? Like these little brightness should be on the same side. So to do that, it's again really easy. This time we're going to select the part, not the deformer, but the part. We're going to right click, reflect, and this time we're going to reflect horizontally. And now our iris is the same orientation as the left part, and they move correctly this time. So that's all for today. That's how you animate the eyes, how to duplicate it, and, well, the eyeballs as well. A little disclaimer here. You guys remember that I made a respective deformer for the irises, right? Because we can make hearts, and we could put stars, and we can change stuff, right, inside that deformer, so we don't need to animate them again. Because of that, I would recommend not duplicating the eye right away, because later in our next video we're going to learn how to animate the mouth. And once we have our mouth animated and we have our eye, we can start making expressions. And, well, it's easy if we make the expressions in one eye only, and then we duplicate it, okay? And we don't need to do more work again. So if you want to have your character like that, that's why I showed you how to reflect it, because, you know, you never know, somebody might need to just reflect the eye and fix the eyeball issue. But for further working efficiency, well, I'm going to take one eye away and duplicate it when everything is finished, right? Expressions and basically everything. So for now, that will be it. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new in this video. See you later, guys, and have a nice day.